G'day, everyone. Welcome to the Outback Packers podcast, the podcast where two mates from all the way across the world have a yarn talking Packers football and the green and gold. I'm Nick Gregory, as always, joined by my co-host Iowa Joe, today breaking down the latest from training camp, preseason, and family night. So tonight is kind of a funny episode, pretty bittersweet for myself. Due to my own kind of personal commitments and things with like my music school and all that stuff, I decided to kind of take a step back from the pod, not necessarily from the entire brand, but just from the show. I won't be able to be regularly on here anymore. So we do have a few changes coming up here, and Joe is going to take the reins, and I absolutely trust him to do a fantastic job with this. But yeah, unfortunately for me, this is probably going to be the last one for a good while here. But luckily for our last one here, for my last one, there is a heap to talk about. We're kind of right at getting onto this point where we're just about to look into the barrel of the season, and we have actual players and footage to look at and film that we've been able to break down. And I'm just really excited to kind of get into that because it's only been a week since we last talked, but I just feel like there's so much that's happened in that time. Joe, what do you think?
Well, I think you're a son of a bitch for leaving this all to me. So that's the first thing. But, we've been doing this so long. Well, not so long. It's not been quite the year yet. We almost made it a year.
Just about.
But, you got to get in your own headspace. So take your break. I think we'll leave part of the news kind of a surprise until after this episode comes out. Mm-hmm. So yeah, but as for what we're here to talk about, I was excited. I was watching a Freezer podcast earlier today, and those guys said it great that this is the most excited I've been for a preseason game in a long time. Mm-hmm. And it just because it's an unknown. I mean, hell, we had starters playing for the first time in forever. And, we actually got to see plays be made, not just the bare minimum effort being put in. And we actually got a win in preseason, a decent win in preseason. Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, of course, preseason wins don't, mean anything. But it still felt good to see that happen. Of course, there's ups and downs, and we'll get into that, but it was just great to have football on TV again.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm right there with you. I wasn't able to tune in for the entirety of the game live, but I mean, that feeling of seeing, the guy who's going to be our starter just out there. I mean, there's not really much you can do to really recount that in years past. I mean, Rodgers always looked fantastic in preseason, and it didn't really matter at that point. But now we're kind of at a stage where these things do matter. And the way well, not necessarily that I'm projecting Jordan Love's whole season from one preseason game, but the way he looks in this drive, it really did matter, and it's fantastic that he looked so good and so promising. I mean, not to be that guy, but Justin Fields is out there throwing screen passes, and his net average air yards was -9 or something. Obviously, I don't actually care that much about this stuff, but as far as the process, I mean, we're seeing that from him. We're seeing him, making those reads, seeing him being smart with the ball. I mean, hell, not to inflate, training camp stats, but Andy Herman made that kind of comment a few days ago that in the entirety of camp, he's only made 3 or 4 true turnover-worthy plays, and even now, he's made even less interceptions. And it's just really nice to see and hear that he's definitely getting better. And, you can see it from the clips, and we've seen small snippets from the videos from training camp, but to actually see it in a game on the field is another thing entirely, especially against another team.
To kind of sidetrack a little bit, I do want to apologize to anybody who's going to be watching this video, because this was kind of a last-minute record session, and I'm sitting in my car, so I don't know if you guys can see. This is my view. So if I'm not looking at camera, then it's because I'm trying to watch out to make sure nobody's coming up on me. But yeah, I mean, even throughout the game, I was happy with the way LaFleur schemed for the game, because they gave him a few out passes just to get him confident. And of course, you don't want to give away everything, so you're not going to just start throwing bombs down the field, but it at least gave you a sense of what he could do. I don't know. Do we want to get right into the game, or is there anything else you want to start kind of talking about?
Well, it depends if you want to start with the preseason game or with the overall, just like in general takeaways. 'Cause I think it might be nice to just go through the game first.
Right. I mean, I have a whole 4 pages worth of notes from every drive. So, I mean, we could probably spend another 2 days just talking about my notes. But so I mean,
let's start with the game, I think, then.
What's that?
Let's start with the game then, I reckon.
Okay. Because I mean, even on the first drive, I missed just a hair at the beginning of it, but the first drive, I have wrote down that he had a couple of nice quick hitters, which I just mentioned that, to get him confident, and you could see the poise in him when he was making the passes. Then he had a nice deep throw, and I know I've seen some people kind of trash it. Maybe not. Maybe trash is a little harsh word, but they critiqued it a little too much. It was a perfect pass. The safety just made a really good play on it. He read it the whole way, but the pass was technically on button. Could he have made it a little bit longer? Sure, but I mean, it was right there over the shoulder for Christian Watson to make the play had the safety not read it like he did. So, I mean, and then there was kind of the bad throw where he overthrew Musgrave, but, I think he kind of got excited with that throw because he saw Musgrave coming over the middle wide open. And, we haven't seen that in Green Bay in a long time, where we've had a speedy type tight end, receiving tight end. So, but that's what I said on the first offensive drive. The defensive drive was great, but I'll let you talk about the offensive one first.
Yeah, I think the thing that really excites me about Jordan Love, when it comes to things that he could do potentially better or just different to Rodgers, is kind of that thing of just having the short term memory. We see him kind of get, like you said, get a bit excited, overthrows Musgrave, and especially after that Watson pass, I think it's very easy for a young player to just get in their head a little bit. And I think we definitely saw that in his first start against KC, right? But this time it's again, it's a preseason game. But it is just nice to see that he can focus, he can reel himself in, and he can still make some really nice throws with nice touch on them. And this is because the first drive didn't go for a touchdown. It didn't seem like it really affected him that much. He was very capable of just dusting himself off and trying again, which I think is kind of a very good a testament to his character in general. I mean, for those of you who know about Jordan's kind of backstory and his past, this is a really resilient guy, and that's one of the things that I'm really excited about when he gets more serious playing time. Just that kind of never give up mentality, and I don't think he's a guy who's ever going to get shy with the ball. So it's just nice to see the kind of little inklings of that.
Definitely, and compared to the past, he's more confident. You can see that the poise in him when he drops back, and I'm sorry to a lot of these haters that have been fucking talking shit about him, but he's looking good. Yeah, it's just preseason, but you're going to have ups and downs with him. Even the best quarterbacks in the world don't go lights out in their first year.
Mm-hmm.
Hell, Peyton Manning looked like a bust for the first couple of years until he got settled in. I remember talking with a friend of mine that back in the day, when after Peyton was drafted, that he held the rookie record for most interceptions in a season or something like that.
Yeah, he did.
And so, I mean, Love isn't a rookie anymore, but this is going to be his first season getting playing time, consistent playing time. So there's going to be ups and downs, and there's going to be things that he's going to do that I'll be more worried later on in the season if he's still making those same mistakes than I am when he's making those mistakes now. That's what preseason's for. Preseason is for making those mistakes. But if he progresses and cuts those mistakes out, we've got a quarterback on our hands.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, and like I guess kind of going even more into these young players here. It just really seems like he's starting to build a rapport with both Dobbs and Watson, and even Reed and Musgrave. It's just so nice that these guys are hyping each other up, and it feels like every second update that I read out of training camp and from these and watching it in the games is like Jordan Love hits Luke Musgrave over the middle of the field. It's like, is that? I didn't realize that was allowed. I didn't realize that.
No kidding.
Teams could do that.
We haven't seen over the middle in a long time.
Yeah.
But we also haven't seen the weapons like these in a long time. Again, I go back to the Freezer podcast that they were talking about. It was just a few years ago when the 3 wide receivers that the Packers drafted in the same draft all basically were the same. I mean, Jamon Moore was kind of the outlier because he didn't run the high 40 and he consistently couldn't catch a cold, but basically they were all built the same. They came out of the same mold. Well, now we have Christian Watson, who's the tall, athletic speedster, the kind of all-around guy that you want. You have Dobbs that seems to be like the route runner and the guy to make a miss, but still has a kind of, I hate to put this kind of on him, but the Devontae type player where they weren't full out speedsters, but they had the ability to make it. Then you've got Jaden Reed, who is your essential slot receiver, who's built like a slot receiver, but could play on the boundary. And then you've got that Toure, who's probably not ever going to be a number 1, but will be that solid all-around guy that you need when you need him. And then now you've got the tight end, the athletic tight ends that, they definitely need to work on their blocking and some of their decision making, but that's because they're rookies. All these guys are still young.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you might have retweeted this today. Sorry, should I say reposted?
Something like that.
The rookie receptions record for a tight end in Green Bay is only 34 from Bubba Franks, and that is just so mind blowing. Only 34 receptions, even for a rookie. That's like the record. You kidding me? Like I just think if Love is healthy and if Musgrave is healthy, there's no chance that stands as the reception record for a rookie tight end, because he's going to be like the 3rd or 4th option in this offense.
Well, not even just Musgrave, but Kraft. I mean, he could be that option too, and he could be more of the all-around type tight end, the blocker, the receiver, the route runner type guy. So that's the first time in a long time we've had that type of guy. And 34 receptions for a rookie tight end seems really low, but that's just how the Packers have used their tight ends for a long time. They've never really put a premium on them in a long time.
Yeah, no, for sure.
But now let's talk about the defense, because we saw a lot of the starters on defense. That first drive was amazing.
Yeah. The slot blitz.
Yeah, I have it wrote down here. Good defense start or defensive start, Nixon sack and a pass breakup. If we can get that kind of play consistently out of Keyshawn in our slot, this defense is going to be amazing. Who fucking cares about safeties? So, but I mean, the pass rush got there. The Devontae Wyatt was, broke through. And then of course you got Keyshawn making the plays, And obviously they didn't have Jair out there, and I think was Razul out there. I don't remember.
I believe so for the first drive.
Okay. So you really weren't dealing even with the cream of the crop of the defense, you know. Think about when Rashawn comes back and Jair's in there, which we probably should mention that they activated Rashawn off the pup.
Oh man,
So
yeah.
not saying that he's going to start anytime soon, but that just goes to show that he could be ready by week 1.
I mean, and yeah, and I think everyone is hyper aware of our recent history with ACL injuries, especially Bakhtiari. I mean, because I kind of mentioned that last week that it seems like he was already kind of like gearing up to start training again, and the fact that he's practicing already, I'm like, that's fucking insane, dude. Like, he's such a
I don't
freak.
think
I
he
mean,
ever stopped training though. I think even when he had the brace on his knee and
I
all
mean,
sutured up, I think he was still out there training.
he's that kind of guy. He's just that kind of guy, man. He's such a workaholic, and I mean, I find it so hard to just not love everything about Gary. I mean, oh, man, what a fantastic player in person.
And I have to continue to say I'm sorry because not that I really called the pick a horrible, horrible, horrible pick. I just didn't understand it at the time. I thought he could end up busting out or being a bust just because of the lack of production in college, and that just goes to show that sometimes you don't have to have the production in college to be a player in the league. But it just that first defensive drive gave me a lot of hope. Maybe there's something there.
No, yeah, and something I think that really excites me about the group this year is just like that edge depth is like genuinely exciting, even behind Gary. It's probably Preston's last year with the team, but Justin Hollins is routinely making himself known. Kingsley Enagbare was Enagbare was so promising last year and continues to kind of just get better here and more physical. I think put in a little bit of weight, and then that's not even mentioning Van Ness. Not even mentioning Carl Brooks and Colby Wooden, who both have some versatility at the 5 and 7 tech. This D-line rotation is actually like genuinely just so like exciting. And going even further, talking about guys like Jonathan Ford, you mentioned Devontae Wyatt. I mean, oh man, I'm so excited to see him play.
Well, and you missed a big UDFA that the Packers signed, Britton Cox, who was even making plays in the game. So I mean, that depth is something else. But I think it was Preston and Justin Hollins starting on this drive. And, between those two and Devontae Wyatt, they were creating tremendous pressure. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I interrupted you, but...
No, all good. I think especially this Barry system is really predicated on the fact that you can just leave the D-line to do their thing. Like we've seen that he's almost basically refused to put any effort into like stunts and twists and any kind of systematic havoc from the D line. And what if Van Ness pans out and with Devontae Wyatt looking as good as he has, and TJ Slayton kind of taking up the middle of the field there, like these guys have the potential to really push this unit forward, and especially in a year where the secondary, the safeties namely, are going to be weaker than they have been in years past. It just makes it even so much more important that these guys are able to contribute. And like we're seeing all the right signs out of them. And like it seems like that is like quite a tentative battle there in the middle of the field. Like I mentioned Jonathan Ford, but he's by no means necessarily a lock to be on the roster here. He'd probably be like the last string defensive lineman on there.
Maybe. I think he really who did we talk about this with? Paul Brettel, where LaFlores went out of his way to compliment Ford, and then just some of the things he was doing in this past game. I don't think he may not be like 100% lock in, but I also don't think you can just throw him aside. I don't know if he'd be able to ride the practice squad.
No, for sure. It's just nice to hear about it. Just like we're just used to. And I always point out, the past few weeks I've said this, that in Gutekunst's tenure, the Packers have ranked 32nd in EPA by play stopping the run. The whole time they've been the worst run stopping team in the league by that metric. And it's a big part of it, the D line talent. And now that Dean Lowry is out of the way, and we're getting some fresh blood in, and more Darren Reed. These guys who were just straight up, just physical, just talented. It's just exciting. The thing we always come back to with this year's team is just exciting, and there's just so much unknown. But what we're seeing so far has been good.
Definitely. I mean, even the rookies are stepping up. Jaden Reed was making some tremendous plays during the game. We didn't really see much out of the tight ends per se. But it's still early on with those guys. Malik Heath was doing tremendous. I kind of been pumping him up something fierce lately. Going back to our wide receiver episode pre-draft, I believe I said during that one, if I hadn't during that one, then I've said it since, that I talked about him. He was the type of guy that seemed like he had the ability. He just wouldn't put in the effort at Ole Miss. And I think even some of the interviews he's given recently, he said the same thing, that, he just didn't try. He just coasted through. And now we're starting to see what he can be in practices and in the game. I will say it was kind of weird seeing an 18 out on the field and it not being Randall Cobb. At first it had me thrown, because I saw that first completion to him. I was like, wait a minute, was that Randall? Because he kind of ran a Randall route. And I was like, oh, yeah. And I was like, wait, that's not Randall. That guy's a little bit taller.
It's almost as strange as saying like 17 on the kicker. That one's still pretty hard to get over.
Yeah. And 17 on the back of the third string quarterback too.
McGough, yeah.
But yeah, and I think it's Magoo. I think I was correct about that. Yeah, I think that's what they were calling him during the game. So we'll have to I'll have to do some checking on that, but I think it is Magoo. Which is still kind of funny. Who else was? Well, I mean, even the line. Well, I guess Rasheed Walker's not really a rookie anymore, but after one rocky play, he settled in and did great. Royce Newman, though, your boy is he's got to be gone. He does not look good at all.
You're not wrong. It's so funny. Like, some of these players that come through the league in general, it's like they have serviceable or sometimes even a good rookie year, and they just kind of fall off a cliff. It's really weird. Like, for example, like Josh Jackson. Not that he was necessarily ever a good player, but it was kind of he seemed all right. Didn't need to improve, obviously, but he was kind of whatever. He was there and it was okay. But it's as time goes on, they just get more and more kind of exposed for their weaknesses. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing a bit with Royce Newman here. Is just because there was things that he could do well in his rookie season, and he was a starter on that O-line. Even though he was the worst one, he was still a starter. That still counts for something. But it's everything that we hear from him is just what's going on, man? Or even Josh Myers. There was that post the other day that there had been 5 or 6 fumbled snaps in practice, and all of them had come from Josh Myers. It's how are you? What? I don't understand. What's happening? You should be getting better, at least incrementally, and it seems like they just get more and more exposed.
Well, the only thing I can stand up for Josh Myers about is he's going from one quarterback to another. So there might be a different preference when it comes to snapping. But that's got to be getting taken over quick. There's no way that he can keep doing it. But yeah, I saw something about that where there's been at least one fumbled snap in every practice so far this year. Yeah, crazy, man. And I don't even think it's just Josh Myers either. I think that Cole Snyder had a couple of them too. And then was it during the game when John Runyon was first put in as center? I think there was a fumbled one. Or I mean, put in as at
Yeah, I think
center.
yeah.
So I mean, it's not just been Meyer either. It's been everybody. It's like nobody wants to fucking snap the ball.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but I mean, there was very few. How do I want to say it? There's always your good list and your bad list, and there were very few that I could tell on the bad list. I mean, there was some, and they were noticeable, but there wasn't a lot. There was more good than there was bad.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that. And then kind of, like LaFleur said, it's just nice to see that kind of that energy from these guys, and they are playing a little bit differently. Justice Mosqueda posted a few cut ups as well of, like, again, like, not to put too much stock into a preseason, but the fact that Joe Barry is kind of scheming these guys up man on man, where even in the past, he has been like, when it gets to the lesser players, or like players lower on the roster, he's always trying to kind of hide them. And obviously it's preseason, but it's just like he said that he noticed that there's a few concepts that he just hasn't seen much, if at all, from this defense, even in previous preseasons. So it's nice, and it seems like he kind of is willing to experiment a little bit more. And Jair has talked about kind of trusting his play calls a bit more and that kind of thing. It's kind of these small little incremental changes that are kind of just like in a vacuum, none of them are especially indicative of anything massive, but it's just you're just saying what you want to see out of like all these little areas. It's like again, yeah, you're just saying what you want to see.
Right. So I mean, just to kind of get back to the game, uh, it was nice seeing motion being used.
Mm.
We know the former quarterback was notorious about saying how he hated motion, but it was nice seeing like the fake jet sweeps and the actual jet sweeps and stuff like that, because we were seeing the LaFleur system actually being put in place.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really nice. Jaden Reed was getting most of the jet sweep snaps, which, he was looking great. I mean, he wasn't gashing the defenses by no means, but he was still making enough to count on. I mean, like the one that I have right down here for the very first one, he got a nice 5-yard pickup. Um, uh, so it's nice seeing that stuff. I know we could sit here and bash Rodgers and the way things ended the last couple of years. And, I know LaFleur and Gutekunst both kind of made the comment that, well, it's not that we haven't seen the full system of Matt LaFleur. Well, we really haven't, because LaFleur's system is based on motion. And when you got a quarterback who doesn't want to do motion, then that just cuts out half of your plays. So it's good to see that concept actually being run by people who are capable of running it. I'm sorry, Alan Lazard, but you should not be taking jet sweeps for nothing.
No. I mean, I think everyone can agree on that pretty comfortably. But yeah, seeing the raw explosiveness from these guys, and again, when your big rookie tight end is the fastest recorded player in your training camps, I mean, that this really speaks to the explosiveness. And between him, Watson, Reed, obviously, and some of these kind of these lower roster players. Sorry, I'm actually blanking here. These receivers who are lower on the depth chart. There's so many explosive players, and it's just by default. And we saw it from Emmanuel Wilson. I mean, that kid's got an absolute jetpack. And this is what you want to see from these kind of guys. Just a little bit of excitement, a bit of speed, explosiveness, and because we saw it with Tyler Ervin. That 1 year. If LaFleur has someone that he can use on those gadget players, he will use them. And last year it kind of was only Christian Watson, because Dobbs was injured, and we kind of had 80-year-old Randall Cobb out there, and Alan Lazard, like you said. And now that there's just so much to choose from, there's just so much potential for what he can do in that scheme.
Well, and I tweeted it or X'd it or posted it or whatever the hell it's called on that site anymore. That with the shoulder injury that Tyler Goodson sustained, if it keeps him out for any period of time, it would break my heart, but I could see Emmanuel Wilson jumping him for that third running back spot. I mean, which sucks because Goodson has done everything in the world that they've asked him. They put him on kick return. He's taken the Tyler Irvin role where he was doing the jet sweeps. He was, in pass catch. He was doing the pass blocking. And now he's hurt his shoulder. They don't think it's a long-term thing, but you never know with those type of injuries until they really announce. Usually Wednesdays are when they announce their full injury reports. But with the way Wilson played and the speed that he's got, there's just no way that if Goodson is out for any extended time that he can get over it. Now, I've been wrong before. We've seen these flashes in the pan before. Now, I'm not calling Wilson a flash in the pan. I mean, we obviously got to see what he can do the next 2 games. But, we've seen that happen where they've come and balled out during the preseason, but they don't make the final cut. So it's going to be interesting to see what that third. I just, for the life of me, cannot understand how Patrick Taylor is still on the team. He really does nothing for me. And I hate to say that. I'm not trying to say he's a dud by no means, but they've had him for so long, and I've not seen any kind of real improvement to him. He's still the same type of player that they had when he first signed as a UDFA. So I don't see the allure there anymore, which sucks.
I've been on that train for years, man. I even when he first came on, I just feel like when you have a young running back like that, when he can block, that's kind of like really it. I don't know. I mean, he's kind of just like very average at everything and just not bad at anything, I think. And I'm just like, you need like one exciting thing about you as a young player, as like a back of the roster player.
Yeah. And yeah, he just doesn't have it, which kind of pisses me off even more. Thinking about last year where he was getting snaps over Goodson, because it's like Goodson can probably do just about the same shit as Taylor can. And people are going to say that that's just my bias showing, but
it definitely is.
Oh, it definitely is. But I mean, if you sit there and think about it, there's no way looking at the 2 players that you can say, oh yeah, that guy should be playing over the other one. Because he's been in the system longer and still doesn't look like he's made any improvements on it. And you very rarely can improve your abilities. And he was very limited with his abilities to start with. But I have to say, I got to point this one out too. How about my boy Carrington Valentine?
Man, yeah.
That just amazing what he's been doing. Again, we got to kind of temper expectations because it is preseason. But geez, man, talk about putting your name in the spotlight. It just he had 1 interception and at least 2 pass breakups, and tackles. There were a couple of times that if he didn't make the tackle, the guy was gone. So on the other end, Corey Ballantyne could probably take a walk, but he probably won't because of the special teams.
Yeah. Well, the thing with Carrington is that, even though, like you said, he does quite often play with second and third stringers, and against preseason, he's still doing similar things against the starters on the team who are good. Like, we know that they can play. We know Watson can play. We know Dobbs can play. And Valentine is making plays against them. And that's the real exciting part to me, is that he's not just beating up on these back of the roster guys. He's showing legit promise. He's physical. He can tackle, and he has like kind of man coverage ability, which again, we'll see how useful that actually is during the season. But yeah, like you said, he's done everything that he possibly can to just put himself into the limelight. It's fantastic.
Well, and like you just said, it's not like he's doing it against scrubs, because during OTAs, he was the only one that was going up against the number ones because Jair wasn't practicing, Razul wasn't practicing. So and of course, Stokes is still out.
Yep.
So that meant he had to step up, and he was doing it consistently against Christian Watson and Dobbs and Torrey and those guys. So, what a steal for a seventh rounder if he can really make it work during the regular season.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I hope that they don't do to him like they were trying to do with some other guys. He's a boundary type guy. He's not a slot guy. Leave him in the boundary and let him eat. Don't try to put him in a spot where he's not going to be able to handle it. So I mean, I can't say that he can't play slot, but to me, with the way he was playing, he looked like a pure boundary guy. So, throw him out on the boundary. Hell, if you've got to move Razul to the friggin' safety position, do it. And you're going to be able to do it without much hiccup because you've got Carrington who's balling out on that side. And then you got Jair on the other side. And if Stokes comes back, you've got another one who can play boundary. So...
yeah, it never hurts. It never hurts to have those guys around, right?
Definitely.
Something I want to quickly touch on here as well is this safety room. I guess if we have to look at something that was not the greatest from the preseason game, it probably is that safety room. Anthony Johnson Jr. hasn't really kind of had the incredibly strong start to camp. He hasn't really solidified himself even with the starters at all. And the guys like Jonathan Owens, who I never really expected much out of in the first place, but not the pretty weak showing from him there, with a few missed tackles and kind of misreading some of these run plays here. But on the other hand, Tavarius Moore has been extremely promising. I think he's kind of in line to be the starter week 1 as it is, even over Rudy Ford, which I think is quite interesting as a guy who was kind of intended to be a special teams piece. But I mean, what did you see from these safeties here, good and bad?
Well, I will agree and disagree with you on Johnson. I think he started off slow, but then as he got more comfortable, he was starting to make plays. I think there was one hit he made towards the end of the game that even made my jaw hurt. So, I mean, and I think it was when we were talking to Paul Brettel. You got to remember that Anthony Johnson's only played the safety position for like 2 years. So he's still trying to get comfortable in that. Did you hear the train go by?
Very, very, very softly in the background.
But he's still going to have time. Now this is where I disagreed with Paul. I don't think there's going to be a way that they're going to be able to stash him on the practice squad. And I don't see how they could cut him either. Maybe it comes down to Jonathan Owens. Now I have to give Jonathan Owens credit. He played the run well. When there was some broken coverage, it was usually him doing it. But other than that, I thought he played the run well. He was hitting the line very well, and he was, filling the role as well as he could. I don't know. It's so hard to say because there's not really much there to talk about. Ward has looked all right, but he still hasn't been a world beater by no means. Rudy Ford hasn't looked, like a superstar. I don't know. Did Savage play? That's a bad question to ask. If you can't remember if he played or not, then he didn't really do anything.
I'm pretty sure that he played. But yeah, I don't know. Savage is such a weird one because he has had highs. He has had his moments. But, there is also still those kind of messy plays and him getting beaten relatively regularly as well.
I thought Benny Sapp, in a way, kind of like I just talked about Anthony Johnson, started off a little slow, but then the more he got comfortable, the more he started showing up. Because he even had an almost interception. And it was a nice play too. I really thought that they were going to overturn it the way it landed. Were you able to see that?
Yeah, no, but by the time it was halftime, I wasn't able to keep going.
Okay. Well, it was along the sideline, and he read the play well. He jumped for the pass, and when he came down, he had 1 foot in, and he didn't get the other foot down, but it looked like he got his one ass cheek down before he went out of bounds. But they must have not thought so when they went back and reviewed it. But I mean, it was a really nice play, and so I think it's more that when these guys start getting comfortable is when we're going to see more out of them.
Sure. Yeah.
Because they are rookies. Benny Sapp was
Yeah.
undrafted. Anthony Johnson's only played the position a couple of years and was drafted in the 7th round. Now, on the other hand, Jonathan Owens, Tavarius Moore, Moore. Did I call him Ward earlier? I think I called him Ward earlier. Oh, well. If he's listening to this, I'm sorry, but I doubt you're listening to it, so I don't care. They should know a little bit more. They shouldn't have to become comfortable in a situation. They're the veterans of the group. They should be able to handle it a little bit more. So you should be seeing more out of them than you do the guys that are going to take a little bit longer to get into it. But yes, the thing that's going to help the safety position is if our corners come out and just ball out and the pass rush hits home. Then we won't have to worry about safety play.
Yeah, I mean, I think you need at least 2 of the 3 to be good, Yeah, because especially recently in the NFL, we kind of seen the development of, placing a lot more value on safeties. But, traditionally, like 10 years ago, the safety position was not valued as highly as it is in the modern NFL. So, if we have a really strong corner group and, some of those guys are, because this team plays a lot of quarters coverage as well. The corners are, the fact is that, Jair and Rasul are going to be covering deep, a decent amount of the time. So, it's not like the safeties are all alone by themselves. And I'm sure the coaching staff is aware of their weakness there. So it will be interesting to see how they tackle that. But it's not really an ultra promising safety performance here.
Who knows, with all the corners that they're producing, maybe they'll turn one of them into the Charles Woodson type roamer. Then he can be like a hybrid safety corner type deal where he can just roam around the field and make plays. Maybe that'd be a good thing for Rasul to do. I'd hate to take Jair and put him in that position because I think he's the type of guy you just put him, say that's your guy, cover him, basically Jair Island. So, I mean, maybe that's something they'll end up doing. And that would help out the safety position too, because then you could play like one safety and one roamer, and who's theoretically in that safety position, but will just basically be your playmaker. So who knows? I would also look towards cut downs. If a safety comes free at some point during cut downs, then I could see the Packers making a jump at him.
It's very possible. It's very, very possible. The last thing I want to talk about here, kind of as we're just finishing up the time, this O-line battle is probably the most fascinating part of camp for me at the moment. I mean, when you look at kind of just the way they've been juggling around these guys, and they haven't been shy about the fact that this is an open competition at some of these spots. I mean, to some degree, at least one of the guard spots is up for grabs or up for discussion. The center position is absolutely up in the air. Right tackle is still a mystery. And when you get to the depth even, I mean, they had Rasheed Walker playing with the ones today. And it really seems like Rasheed Walker and Caleb Jones are in line to be those backup tackles behind kind of Yosh Nijman, Zach Tom, and Bakhtiari, obviously. And then even then, it's kind of like Zach Tom is one of the best 5. It's just trying to figure out where exactly that is. And, some people have kind of entertained the idea of putting him at guard and Elton moves to center, or Josh Myers moves to guard and Tom becomes the center, or, Tom becomes the tackle, Josh Myers stays at center. and maybe Sean Ryan slots in somewhere. This battle is just so fascinating. And I guess what I want to know, Joe, is what is kind of your best five here? Where would you put these guys?
Well, before I give you the best five, I'm going to make this comment. If Josh Myers is not center, or how do I want to put this? If Zach Tom is playing interior, then they've done a whole lot of reshuffling. I don't think. Well, no, I even put that wrong. I don't know how I want to put this, because I don't think Zach Tom, unless it comes down to it where they really don't trust Josh Myers, there's no way they're going to kick Josh Myers out to guard and put Zach Tom center. I think if Zach Tom is playing anywhere in the interior, it's because they don't trust Josh Myers anymore. So your hypothetical where you put Tom at center and kick Myers out to guard, I just don't see it happening. I don't see Elton moving. I think he's pretty rock solid right at the left guard position. Right tackle is open. I know they wish that they could just keep Yash as a backup left tackle and not have to worry about switching him in and out if there's an injury or something. They've talked about that a lot, where they would rather keep him at one position than trying to, move him around as needed. I think, in my opinion right now, my five guys would be, obviously Bakhtiari and Elton at the left side, probably Myers at center for now, Runyon, and then Tom at right tackle. Yash can do Yash things. There's no doubt about it. I'm not denying Yash as a player. I just think that Tom is the better potential. And I think he played better at the tackle position than he did at the guard position when he was thrown in there.
I agree with that. Absolutely.
And I know we've disagreed on this a lot, but I think John Runyon's pretty much earned his spot, and there should be no need for him to move. Is he a top 10 guard in the league? No, but he definitely is not a scrub either. He's not the weak link of that line. So, I mean, he's a dog. That's pretty much how I got to put it. He's a dog. He's going to go out there and play the game without getting any kind of recognition for it. But if I had to say the weak link, it's probably Myers. I joked about this a lot this past year where, he seemed to make his best blocks against his own teammates. And I mean, he's had his ups and downs. And like I said earlier about the snaps, he's trying to get used to another quarterback. It's not like he can just snap your fingers and have a connection with a guy. So it's going to be interesting what they do. But I think if they put Tom at any of the interior positions, that means Josh Myers is out.
Yeah. I mean, look, for me, this, if we're being for me being honest about who's the best players in general, it's tough for me to put Josh Myers there right now. I think that Josh Myers has the potential to be a better guard than John Runyon is, purely just based on physical talent. And obviously that's a lot to say without having seen him there. But right now, I think that you should try and solidify one side of the line really rock solid. And I'm a big believer in if this pick a weakness that you're going to have and just kind of deal with that one weakness. If you have holes on either side of the line, if you shuffle around Elton and you're kind of playing around the center, etc., I think it's just too much to deal with. If you know that your right tackle is not super strong, or if you know that your right guard is not as strong, you can deal with that. You can work around that. But if Jordan Love is constantly worrying about both sides, I think it's just a recipe for a nightmare. So if it was me, I would keep it so that the Bakhtiari and Elton on the left side, obviously. I would put Tom in the middle. I would leave Runyon on the right side. And just deal with whatever Josh does at right tackle and kind of see how it goes. I think, next year is when it gets really interesting, kind of what's going to happen with Bakhtiari. And I think that's why they're really pushing these kind of backup tackles to see what they can do. But at the moment, that's kind of my ideal line, or who I think are the best five as we stand here currently. I think that Tom is like his best position is at center. I don't think he has enough kind of mass to really run it at the guard position as well as he could at tackle or center. I think at that point you might as well just put Sean Ryan in there. But yeah, I mean, it is like this competition is just very, very fascinating.
Even Sean Ryan has been looking good according to what I've been reading coming out of camp. So, I mean, that's a possibility too. I mean, looking at it next year, there's a real possibility that, Tom's at center or Tom's at right tackle. I'd hate to put him over at left tackle, but I mean, I suppose I would if I had to. Not that he couldn't do it. It just, I don't know. You'd have two of the same type of guys on that left side because I view him kind of similar to I do Elton. Not that it's anything bad, but
Elton is a bit more physical though, to be fair.
I know you said you got to get going, but I thought it was funny after the joint practices that Elton was the one that was getting into the scraps and knocking people around. And he got escorted out of practice because of the fights. And that was hilarious. Yeah. Because I just didn't see it coming from Elton. He's that quiet, kind of laid back type of guy. But I'm glad to see the fire out of him. And one other thing that I forgot to mention about Malik Heath, that block that he put on, what was the guy's name? Tell, that pissed Tell off so much that he drew the fucking penalty. Yeah, that's beautiful. We definitely got an Alan Lazard replacement right there. A more the athletic Alan Lazard.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, that's all the time that I have for today. Is there anything else you want to say here kind of before we finish up?
With Nick leaving, just kind of keep your eyes out for news. We kind of got to do some changing up and stuff. This pod isn't ending. It might come out as a different name or something like that, but we are going to continue and we'll see what happens for the future.
Yeah. Well, I just kind of want to say, thanks to Joe for really kind of helping me, as cheesy as it sounds, kind of like realizing a lot of my dreams. The guys that I've gotten to meet by being on this pod, and I've had so much fun doing it. Is just like Wes Hod, Jacob Westendorf, getting to meet not do a pod with Jimmy Christensen. Obviously Todd V, Mike Kawano, Brian Murphy, Sarah Kelleher, Janelle Mackey, Maggie J. Loney. I never would have thought I would have got an opportunity to actually meet and talk to these people. And there's people that I've left off, and I apologize if that's you, but I've loved every second of doing this, and it's a shame that I don't really have as much time anymore. But I doubt that I'm going to be permanently extradited from this publication. I do plan to kind of just be around, obviously check in on how it's going all the time, and I'll still be listening. It's just kind of for me at the moment, need to take a bit of a break, I guess. But yeah, I just want to thanks to whoever does listen. I really appreciate everyone and appreciate the friends that I've made here. Getting a bit sappy, but I've loved doing this, and thanks to Joe for really being my better half of this operation.
I never knew I was going to be a better half of anything. But like I said, the future is still bright, and it's not, how do they say, it's not, well, here you go, it's not goodbye, it's I'll see you later.
Exactly. Well, guys, for the last time in a while, you can find us on Twitter at NicholasGRGR, Joe at Iowa_Joe86, the podcast at Outback_Packers. And, make sure you like, rate, and subscribe. We officially have a star rating on Spotify now, which is quite nice. But yeah, until next time, we'll see you later.